All right, women's basketball fans. We have once again another Commissioner's Cup, and once again, we have another champion. We're, of course, going to talk about the Commissioner's Cup from the New York Liberty perspective. What did we learn after the New York Liberty fall to, of all people, the Minnesota Lynx? Should we be putting some respect on the Lynx? We'll talk about that and more on today's episode.
Hey, women's basketball fans, welcome to Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans brought to you by Black Rosie Media and hosted by Erica L. Ayala.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. My name, Erica L. Ayala. I'm here with the amazing Misha Jones, both of us in different locations than usual. I'm still in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but we have an event coming up on Saturday, so I was doing some planning for that. But Misha, you've got some exciting things happening. Where you at? The sun out?
I know the sun's out. Look, it's 105 right now. 107, excuse me. The temperature's gone up. Just a couple hours ago, the situation looked very different. I know you see the breeze or the shadow of the leaves probably moving. There was no breeze earlier. There was no shade earlier, so I was just straight up sweating. But we are in Phoenix. Cindy
That's
Brunson.
a really funny view.
What's up, Brian?
Hello.
Hey. But yeah, here because Cindy Brunson, a good friend and a mentor, is letting me shadow her Friday night for Sparks Mercury. Those who don't know, that's the dream for me, is to be a color commentator or play-by-play commentator. So gonna get to do that, and then Sunday, going to see Mercury Fever. So Phoenix is a good time. Phoenix is a great place for women's basketball fans.
Wow, you're getting to see the rookie versus the vet.
Rookie versus the vet, man. The first coming versus the second coming for some people who didn't know.
Wow.
BT had that fire first, and so I just think that's so cool to be able to see it.
I love it. Yeah. Let's go, Misha. I love it. All right, Brian, what's you up to?
My computer's back working, thankfully, so that was a blessing. Like, I would have, if it wasn't working, I would have stuck my phone to a tripod and then tried to that way. It would have been an adventure. So thankfully, my tech decided to cooperate, and now I'm back.
We love it. Well, as you see, the gang is all here, and we have a few things to talk about. But you know how we like to do? We start with the shoot around. So, let's talk about what's been happening in women's basketball. And I mean, there's been a lot going on. As usual, women's basketball, don't always know how to act. But I actually want to start with something that is not a basketball-related story. It's also not on our rundown. But I don't know about you, Brian, so we're going to find out in a minute. But I definitely know, Misha, you be dabbling in football, a.k.a. soccer. So bigger air quote snub, Caitlin Clark not going to Paris or Alex Morgan not going to Paris?
It depends on who you are. I've had this conversation with a couple people already today. And there are folks who've got, on either side of that fence. Personally, and I don't yell at me, I'm not mad at it. I'm really not mad at it because, at a certain point, it's a similar conversation to what we've been saying about DT on the women's national team for basketball. Alex Morgan's not as old, but in soccer, the talent is so much younger. You've got to make space for these new, talents to go out there and show you what they can do. And Alex Morgan, man, you look at the last few international outings and it's just like, okay, I get it. I get why you make that decision. You want some new blood. That's not to say I'm a hater. I love me some Alex Morgan. Okay, I grew up in that era of the Ali Kriegers and the Alex Morgans and the Meg Rapinos. So don't do me. All right. But I don't see it as a snub, but a lot of people do, and rightfully so, because it just is weird not having her on the team. It is.
I will say it is definitely shocking. For those who do not know, the U.S. women's national team is what we were talking about earlier this week. They named their Olympic squad It did not include, as some people know her, the baby horse, Alex Morgan. First time since 2018, we have not seen Alex Morgan. I'm kind of with you, Mish. I was shocked, and I haven't kept up because we have a new head coach for the women's national team who has international experience. I have not kept up with the Hayes regime as much as I probably should. Emma Hayes. That being said, I was kind of like, oh, and then I was like, oh, let's just be honest. Let's be honest. Things haven't been working. The connections have not been working. Whether you want to talk about Vlatko, we could even go all the way back to Jill, the questionable addition of Megan Rapinoe, omitting Heather O'Reilly in her last, I mean, there's a lot of different jump off points that we could go to. So, you know, it's just kind of crazy. Jen says, I'm definitely not mad, but if the comp is CC and Morgan, then Morgan is more deserving. And I agree with you. You're right. I kind of set you up, Misha. I did set you up for that because, you know, sometimes we do the headline thing too. we do. I like to start with the headlines and then we debunk the myths. That's what we do here on Gotta Get Up and Black Rosie Media. But Brian, do you keep up with soccer at all? Like, you know anything about this national team and the all black forward line?
I saw like discussion of it, but I had like absolutely no frame of reference. So I was like, "Oh wow, y'all are really passionate about this issue. That's right."
Did Morgan go to camp? Y'all are hilarious.
That's good stuff.
That was good. That was good. It is a lot of Gotham FC players. So now, is that recency bias? Is that akin to having 4 aces on the basketball squad? Or are they really that good?
Exactly. When you've got players that are just that good, I mean, I don't see why you deny them just because they're all on the same team. I understand how it looks, but the fact of the matter is the cream has to rise to the top. And if that's the cream, then that's the cream. So hey, it is what it is. But did Alex Morgan go to camp? Did she go to camp? I would do it, but I'm holding that. I'm going to analyze.
No, don't break the mic. Don't break the mic. Don't break the mic. I love it. What a great callback, JC. Very well done. Okay, I just wanted to get your thoughts there, but we definitely have some basketball shoot-around related things. Okay, Hamby named to 3x3. So we talked about how it was likely going to be Hamby. And now it officially is Hamby. Brian, I know you were live at a Liberty game for our last episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans brought to you by Black Rosie Media. So I'll let you weigh in on this one first. Any surprise that it's Hamby taking over that spot for Cam Brink?
No, I think it was a perfect replacement for Cam because he needed that size to replace Cam in the front court. So having a player like Hamby who's really taken on more of a role this season with Los Angeles, like it's very valuable to have that experience in going into Paris for the 3x3, and she's done the tournaments before, so she's the perfect fit. I will say
she's been in camp. She's been in camp.
Yeah, and I think for USAB, it's not really their fault, but they've run into like a bit of another problem with Ryan Howard being injured, and luckily the rosters don't close until July 26th. So they have a month to sort of figure out if she is going to be healthy enough to make it over to the Olympics. And if not, they have enough contingency plans to sort of think of who's going to be her replacement. So having Hamby locked in now is super valuable, and you get to really start mapping out what you want to do in the tournaments when you get there.
I'm sorry, y'all. I was on another screen and I just saw the video of Teaspoon and Becky Hammon with their mutual press conference. I don't think y'all know. I mean, maybe y'all do because you join us here every week. And I've told this story at least 1 million times. That's like my New York Liberty squad. And there's a great story. That's what I came to Twitter to find, is this great story on Becky Hammon and what she talks about in her rookie season, undrafted rookie season, talking about getting bruises. I mean, the story opens with just her talking about how she's black and blue, because I've heard this story for years from Teaspoon, from C-Rob, from Becky Hammon. When Becky Hammon says the New York Liberty made me, it's not a figure of speech. It is just like forged by the fire. The New York Liberty squad, the veterans on that team, like whomped her behind in camp. They did. And the love, though, and I love that this is happening. The Las Vegas Aces versus the Chicago Sky, Becky Hammon versus Teaspoon, in a season where we're getting such a counter narrative on rookies and veterans. And there is some of that which is generational, right? You show love for people in certain generations by giving them at least as much, if not more, than what they're going to see when they go out in the real world. That's how some people knew how to prepare you, how to love up on you.
Yep.
I think there is a shift in that. Now we gotta be honest. Some of that can be, and it can get to a point where it gets toxic, and so I understand that. But the way these two women have love for each other, the way that Becky Hammon was so excited for Teaspoon. I got to talk to her during the finals. And I don't know, Brian, if you were in that scrum with us, but she talked about how things are just going to be easier for Teaspoon now that she's on the WNBA side compared to what you have to deal with on the NBA side. And she didn't get into any details, but I'm just very curious to see how this game goes tonight. But I love that there's still mutual love there between those two. So I got a little thrown off because I saw that, and exactly, Jen, you get me. Like, that video it's too much. It's too much, and it's not enough at the same time. And I don't know what to do about it. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't even know. But here's the video for those who maybe didn't see it. I haven't seen the press conference itself because I said earlier I was in another meeting, but two legends of the game, two legends of the New York Liberty. And we love to see it. Okay, but we're gonna get back to our actual regularly scheduled program. I did want to talk about Demedas Dantas. Now, I went to the first game for the Connecticut Sun. We said we were going to get an update on Demedas. We didn't get an update on Demedas, but now we do. But that did mean, that it came with some cuts. And this has women's basketball and WNBA Twitter all over the place because, you cut one player, Misha, you bring in one player, Misha, that means you have to cut somebody else. And I don't know, do you think Indiana made the right decision?
So here's the thing. I was a big Celeste Taylor fan. I think even as somebody who we've discussed on this podcast, I'm a big offensive head. You love defense. Celeste Taylor, watching her play makes me love defense. Just because of the energy and the spirit and the competitiveness that she brings to it. And I think there is space for that on this Indiana Fever roster. I was shocked. I can't hold you. I was shocked because she's so young. And, rookies in this league, we know they don't always get the opportunities that we want them to get or hope that they get. But Celeste, I thought she was in a good situation. I thought the Fever, they're starting to see some things work. You know what I mean? Some things are starting to come together. Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Alyssa Smith, all those players are starting to have a little bit more cohesion. Kelsey Mitchell doing Kelsey Mitchell thing. So, I feel like, not to say that there wasn't a need to switch anything up. I think there's always adjustments that can be made, but an adjustment this big feels a little drastic. And I honestly, Demedas Dantas doesn't really move the needle for me. I just, you know what I mean? I can't even remember the last time I saw her in the league. It wasn't that long ago, but was she putting up numbers or doing things that make it seem like, okay, it was time for us to cut a rookie that still hasn't really shown us what she can do yet? I don't know. But again, I'm not in that locker room. So hey, if Christy Sides and Lynn Dunn and all those folks have a vision for it, all right, let's see where it goes.
Yeah, it's just one of many things that, the armchair GMs, so to speak, Brian, are getting down on the Indiana Fever for. I was trying to be patient with Sides and Indiana, but there just seem to be a few things, whether it's Celeste Taylor, who I agree with you, Misha, wouldn't have been my choice. I agree with you also, as much as I really like Demiras Dantas, sounds like she had a similar situation to what Courtney Vandersloot was recently going through, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I mean, Brian, your thoughts on maybe not even just this move, but do you think Indiana is realistically going to get it together? Because, they don't play Chicago every night, Brian.
Yeah, I think for the Fever, and it's a thought I've had for a while as it relates to Christy Sides, you can only pull the, hey, these dudes quit in a press conference routine once. And then if the team responds, you've got them with you. And if they don't, you're probably going to be out of a job. And after they pretty much laid down in Connecticut versus the Sun, she was like, yo, none of these people, nobody tried tonight. Like, no one did anything well. And then they responded with a great 4-1 stretch. And it might have been 5-0 if they handled some business on Sunday evening. So I think for the Fever, it's a situation where it looks like she still has the locker room. And I think that part matters a lot, because especially for a young team with so much attention on them, you've got to be able to withstand the bumps and bruises that come with losing. Because when you're young in the league and you're facing, New York and Connecticut every other week, you have to really be prepared and expect that you're going to really struggle early on. So I think the fact that they were able to go 4-1 after that terrible loss in Connecticut, I think it shows that there's enough buy-in for this team. And I think what will also help, they probably won't be at 500, I don't think, but they've got a particularly advantageous situation where the teams beneath them have been decimated by injuries. Atlanta, Dallas, Washington, all these teams have been ransacked by injuries. So you're almost going to wind up in a situation where you make it as like the 8th seed by default, which I think is which would still be an accomplishment for a group that hasn't made the playoffs since like 2018. It's been a long. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. So if at the very least, if you're able to get into the postseason, anywhere you get there, that's a good step of growth for this group. And I think that experience would help out a little bit more. And then from there, I think it gives Christy Sides more time, because it looked like we were going to have like uncomfortable conversations about her in particular, especially after some of the 30-point losses they had. So the fact that she's got the group set up like this, I think is good for her sort of prospects and this group as a collective going forward.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the standings there. Dallas, whew, wow. I did not see this coming from Dallas. But to your point, I mean, just decimated with injuries. They are in that 12 spot behind the Mystics, who putting together a little 2-game win streak. Okay, come on now, Washington, you better do something.
Look. Don't expect too much more, though. Don't expect too much more.
And then the Los Angeles Sparks, all three of those teams, 4-13. They're not even at 300. Then you have Indiana, 7-11 right now. And then after that, you have the 6-9 Chicago Sky in that 8th spot, right behind the Atlanta Dream, who have been a very interesting team, to say the least, also at 6-9. Then you have Phoenix at 8-8. 8-6 is Vegas, moving on up. Seattle at 10-6. I feel like I know we on this podcast haven't talked about Seattle. Well, this is a podcast for New York Liberty fans, but I thought people maybe were a little bit too quick to jump the gun on them out the gate. But 6-10 in that 4th spot, 13-4 Minnesota. We're going to talk about them a lot. And then the 2 teams with only 3 losses in the league. That's your number 2 team, 13-3 Connecticut Sun. And then the 15-3 New York Liberty. Now, before we get to the New York Liberty, and we're going to do this quick. I mean, but quick for our podcast, because that ain't that quick. But it ain't a New York minute kind of quick. But
quick.
Hashtag. Yes, can't believe we gotta talk about Unquick because Unquick might have been like, you gonna stop
talk about Unquick. Yeah,
you gonna stop calling me outside my name. You gonna stop calling me outside my name. But I mean, Asia Wilson. Yeah. Asia Wilson and her line. I mean, we haven't really talked about that. Again, this is a podcast for New York Liberty fans. I think there's multiple things happening here, but the reason Asia Wilson is in the news, one is because she put that t-shirt out there. That thing sold out. She gone. If you ain't get one, you ain't got it. If you ain't get one, you ain't got it. But then also made some comments. How should I say this? Reinforced some things that people had already been saying about a particular outlet. And listen, it's one thing to have an opinion. We certainly have opinions on this podcast.
And do.
Right? And I don't shy away from them. Say it with my whole chest. That's why I can't remember a time we deleted anything off this dang podcast. No. We go live because we stand on our business. Okay?
Live to tape. Yes.
Live to tape. But I mean, how did y'all feel about how things went down? So we're talking about Just Women's Sports. They have a podcast. They were, I guess, reviewing. They were giving an opinion on Asia's logo, and Asia Wilson kind of was like, listen, we had enough of this. Now, I will say, I think there's a little bit of background. I've just deduced some things as people who used to write for Just Women's Sports are putting out there. I know I've had issues with Just Women's Sports in the past, but I want to have a real conversation. Is it off limits to critique a logo, Misha?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I will tell you, when I first saw the logo, I was like, I can't hold you. I was trying to figure out, but eventually I saw the vision. I get it now. It's the first time you're seeing a new thing. Of course, it's gonna take some time to get your brain around it. Now you're allowed to like or dislike a logo. Absolutely, you reserve your right to an opinion. All of us do, but there is a way to handle that. When you are an outlet and people are coming to you to people from all walks are coming to you to learn about what's happening, and you dislike a logo in a way that feels a little malicious or a little shady or that's different, right? You can say, I didn't really see the vision with the logo, but I'm happy for her. You gonna go Google and put her logo next to the letters S and make it say at? No. That's doing too much. Trying to be too cute. Like, there's a way to dislike things. So I do not think it's all to critique things, but you gotta have some, I don't want to say class because that feels like a charged word, but some couth, some discernment about how to go about that. I thought it was
professionalism, thoughtfulness. Yeah.
Those words. Yes, synonyms. Come on, thesaurus.
Brian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that like the thought I had was that there's a way you can boom on people and not have a situation where you're sort of really, I guess, going too far in a sense, because I think there's a way to like be like, okay, I think the logo is kind of whatever, and then even with the explanation of it, it's like, okay, I see the vision, but I'm not really feeling it. I think that there's a way to do it, and I think that the thing I always remind myself is that you don't go too hard at people because you talk to people, like you meet them in real life. You meet them, you talk with them, you're around them all the time. And then and if you're really getting at somebody in an overly personal way, you're gonna have a moment when they're gonna rightfully be like, hey, come on, let's talk about that thing you said over there. Like, it happens, like we've all been there. And I think especially when it comes to like, I guess, online discourse in general, like you gotta be careful, because even if you mean it in a lighthearted way, someone may take it in a way that is really hurtful to them. And I think once she gave the explanation of like what it meant on a personal level, it's like you can be like, okay, I can appreciate that, but I don't like it. But then calling the logo all kind of things, it's like, it's like you're talking about like my personal like life in a sense, and I can understand why for the person on the receiving end, you go from point A to point B on that, because I think anyone in that situation would. So I think, you know, for an outlet like that, you got to be careful how you get at people, because I feel like I'm going all over the place, but I think you guys can flow with me on this. Like, I think it's like an objectively good thing we don't go as hard at people in the ways that we used to. Plus, like, I feel like if this were like 2014, people would be like a lot meaner about it. So I think we're better as like a populace, that we don't really try to go really hard on people to try to like score points and get viral and all that kind of thing. Like, it's like, what's the point? It doesn't serve any purpose. So I think that, you know, you look at it for like an outlet, especially one with, whether it's earned or not, a level of prestige in the space, prestige, importance, whatever you want to call it. I think when you're in that spot, you can't really get at someone in a way that a random Twitter user with like numbers in their handle is going to go at people, because like that's not what you're here for. Like, you're not supposed to do that. Like, you're supposed to, like Erica said, it's supposed to, like you guys said, there's supposed to be like a level of couth to what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think for them, it's, I guess, another learning moment in this instance, but something where it's like, okay, what are we doing, and how do we not do this again? Because because like
that part right there is what this outlet doesn't seem to do.
Yep.
Because they've been called to the mat a few different times. And my thing is, I think also what we saw is that the way that they approached that was a very cultural way of approaching it, but perhaps because I would argue maybe they're not necessarily completely of the culture, whether that's the like, there's like a deep women's basketball culture. And yes, sometimes it comes through queer identity. Sometimes it comes through race. It definitely comes through how much time you've spent trying to put people onto the WNBA. Like, that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
And the mix of voices and the outlet and the history of that outlet, they were trying to cook up a recipe that they didn't know the history behind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so the flavors ain't gonna be quite right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would be an observation that I want to make. And then I think if you just look at some of the people who used to be with that organization that are no longer there, just go read some of what they're saying. And if I'm not mistaken, that includes Dawn Staley and some podcasts that used to be rocking with just women's sports that are not there anymore.
Yep.
And so I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't know. It's just, it's not surprising. It's also not surprising to see that they took down the content, but made no apology for it, no type of reconciliation for it.
They took it down on Twitter. I don't think they took it down on a couple other sites. So that in itself is a whole other can of worms.
Right. So are you standing behind it or are you not?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I had a situation with a former New York Liberty player. I stood behind everything that I asked.
10 toes.
You know, their reaction is their reaction. I can't help that. I'm about to interview that person again. We're going to see how that goes. But, you know, yeah. I don't know. That was just, it was a little odd to me. So we'll see what happens. I ain't rock with that outlet for a little bit. And, you know, in part, that's why Black Rosie Media exists. Because we want to empower Black women and melanated creators in sports media. So, yeah, we're going to keep it moving. We're going to keep it funky. I did mention that article. I want to pop it in here by Callie Law, who I think is doing some of the best coverage, not just of the Las Vegas Aces, but probably one of my favorite beat writers of this season. Really like the content coming there. So go check that out. I really got to stay off Twitter, y'all, because like I said, I've been doing other things. I'm starting to see the flashback photos. I'm starting to see the photos from today, and like my little baby Liberty fan heart is just, it's too much. It's too much for me. So, you know, I got to keep it.
You could drop a tear or two on the pod. You could drop a tear or two on the pod.
No, we're not doing that because you know, and of course I want to be there. So, but I gotta find it. I think I posted it on Patreon, but I gotta find it. Actually, this is a great opportunity for me to let y'all know that we're gonna start opening up our Slack community to Gotta Get Up fans, because I have some things that I want to test, particularly leading up to and at the Olympics while I'm in Paris. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat later tonight. But if you want to see my conversation with Becky Hammond talking about Teaspoon, because she had just gotten that job during the finals. I know we talked about it tangentially a few times on the podcast. Make sure to join our Slack community, and I'll put it up there for y'all. But we got to keep it moving. We got to talk about the New York Liberty of today. First quarter, Sloot and Laney returned. Now, I think this is great that they returned. And I think there are also some things that we have to talk about when you have players that have been out with injury, or you have players that have been out for a considerable amount of time, and how you integrate them. But Brian, I'm going to go to you for this, because my understanding is at least a part of the reason to get Laney-Hamilton and Sloot back into the rotation was because the New York Liberty had a really difficult travel schedule. And they had been talking about how it was already a compact schedule. Then they had travel issues. And so at least part of getting Betnijah, Laney-Hamilton, and Vandersloot back into the rotation was because they were the more rested players.
Yeah, like they had a pretty jam-packed week last week. Like I think they played Sunday, then Tuesday, Phoenix, Atlanta, and then the back-to-back. So it's been a lot of basketball. Matter of fact, road in Phoenix, home two games set with the Sparks, and then a back-to-back from Barclays on Saturday to Atlanta on Sunday afternoon, and then Tuesday night the Cup in a whole new environment, which is its own can of worms too. So they've had a lot on their plate, and they've only had to do with just 8 players because Niara's been out. B's knee started acting up on the plane ride home from Phoenix, and Sloot has been away.
B's knees. The B's knees. Okay, we're done.
Yeah, so like they've been rocking with 8 players for about a week and playing a lot of like games in a jam-packed schedule. So having anybody come back was super valuable, and I think especially as I think for them in particular, you want to try to get them back in as much of a rhythm as possible. And as Damian mentioned, they were a little bit rusty, which I think is understandable. Like having not played in a while and then playing against what by the numbers is the best defense in the league by far in Minnesota, that's a really tall task to put together on a short notice. And I think that they acquitted themselves well as much as they could considering the circumstances. So I think just having those 2 back will be a huge benefit for the rest of the group going forward. Niara, it looked like for the first time in a minute, was doing some like on-court activities. They haven't given us a sort of like beeline as to when she'll be back on the court, but the jam-packed schedule for her in particular was like, we can't just throw her back in when she's not at full strength yet, and so many games sort of stacked up on top of each other. So I think now that the schedule will be a little bit more spaced out as we draw closer to the Olympic break, starting the 17th. So there might be an opportunity to see her back on the court. And then when she does, we'll have the full 11-player allotment again. So the Liberty are gradually starting to get back to full strength. But I think just within this time frame, I thought the 8 that were here acquitted themselves incredibly well. Like I think that to do this on such short notice and losing so many, like 2 all-stars, losing 2 all-stars and 2 key parts of your starting lineup, and still being able to hold it down against really good competition, I think it's a testament to the buy-in for the players who are here, the coaching staff putting the players in great positions to excel, and I think just the entire organization for just having enough infrastructure to withstand 3 big losses all happening at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. Betnijah, Laney-Hamilton played effectively 34 minutes. So that's pretty good for just getting back, and had 13 points. Now, Courtney Vandersloot played less than 13 minutes, had 4 points. And I want to talk about that a little bit. It came up at the end of our last episode. I know, Brian, you were at that game. Misha and I talked about it, and before we saw the tribute to Jan Vandersloot, we were kind of explaining how, from my vantage point, the New York Liberty had been very thoughtful and caring and very loving towards Vandersloot. Of course, they're going to be asked about Vandersloot and her absence. It's noticeable, and they stuck to what they were saying. She's a part of the team. She's not with the team, and our thoughts and prayers are going out to her. Now, everything to me there indicated, just kind of knowing the history, that it was likely something to do with her mother. And we were talking about that on the podcast, and then lo and behold, the moment of silence and the in memory of popped up. Just, can you take us back to that game and what that moment was like, and what it was like for the players, speaking to them post game, now that the explanation had been officially given as to why Courtney Vandersloot had missed some time?
Sure. Yeah. So like when I found out, like I was coming upstairs from, like, Erica, downstairs in the media room in the basement. Like I was coming up the stairs, and then I got to my seat, and then I look up, I'm like, oh my God. Like it's like I found out then, but like I think just in talking with the team and being around them, you sort of got a sense. And I think for someone like for folks who were there, we sort of knew, and we knew, okay, this is why she's not here. We don't need to like talk about it. We just understand it, and we hope that she's okay. So like just having that care and the compassion for the Vandersloot family and the Liberty players, because like, they know Jan, and they all know her. So it's like you want to give them that space, and you don't want to be like, where's Courtney? Like, we all know what the deal is, and we all need to respect their privacy and their space. And then when they were ready to communicate, they communicated. And I think what also was heartwarming about the evening was that a friend of mine who does video content on the Liberty, Kenny, I think for New York Liberty Fan TV, like Liberty fans were like sending well wishes to the Vandersloot family, and the team retweeted it. And I was like, that's really like kind and thoughtful of the fan base to be like, we know you're not here. We're thinking about you. We're hoping your family is well. And I think that it really sort of like spoke to a community bond within the fan base. I know, Erica, you've been here since '97. So you know that like the fans who really lock in with the Liberty from day one, they know that, okay, they're players on the team, but they're still members of our community. It's not like family, because like it's like different, but like, it's like we feel like together in a sense. And you have that sense of community. Like you want to make sure that, hey, the people who are here, we care about you as individuals. Like we know what you could do on hardwood, but you as a person and like your family and everything like that, we hope that you're doing well and have support there too. So I thought that it was really sort of heartwarming that the fan base really sort of like wrapped their arms around the Vandersloot family and really made Courtney feel that you have a safe space to come back to, and you have people who care about you and really hope for the best and wish you the best. So I thought that was really sort of meaningful. And her playing on Tuesday, the fans gave her like a really nice ovation when she came back in. I didn't see it, but apparently, like in warm-up, Cheryl Reeve came up to Sloop, gave her a really big hug and talked with her for a little bit. So I think it just sort of spoke to how the WNBA is a community in a lot of respects, like a really big, sometimes messy, but really big community that cares about you and will wrap their arms around you. And I thought that things like, I think for a moment like that, it really meant a lot. And I think that it was really sort of beautiful to sort of like observe from being in the space.
Yeah, for sure. And, a lot of people wondering, how can someone kind of go play a basketball game? How can you come back to work? Well, first of all, as someone who unfortunately has been in that same situation and as part of that, club, when you lose a parent, some of that is because we have a society where we don't really understand grief. We don't understand a grief timeline. That thing don't exist. I'm just here to tell you that thing don't exist. And I can't speak for, I want to make it evident. I want to make this very clear. I'm not speaking for Courtney Vandersloot or her family. I'm not speaking about or for the New York Liberty. I don't know those situations. I have not been at a game since the announcement. I can only speak from my personal experience that there was a timeline on the amount of time that I was given, as far as, all that, take all the time you need. There's a timeline on that from a professional standpoint. It's like, take all the time you need, but also like send us all of this and send us all of that. But take all the time you need. We as a society communicate that a lot. I will also say, when I did have to return to work because I was out of all the time I needed, the very first meeting, I could not even look at anyone. I couldn't look up. I couldn't look at I had to look at the table just to center myself. So there's a balance sometimes that you strike between feeling ready to do something and making yourself ready to do something to just get moving again. And we see that with injuries. We see that with heartbreaking losses. This is a different level. It functions in a lot of the same ways, but at the highest level of any of that you've ever experienced and will likely ever experience in your life, especially the first time. So when I saw Courtney Vandersloot on the court, we take it that that's what she wanted for herself. I'm hoping that's the situation that she was given. I also wasn't surprised to see that she only played a few minutes, because it's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult. And we don't know what that's going to look like for the rest of the season for the New York Liberty. And the unfortunate part of this is that there are still basketball implications. But I think what was very heartening for me, Brian, is that, and we saw this evident in their schedule, is that the New York Liberty as a team wanted to win while Vandersloot was away, so that was one less thing she had to worry about, so that she wasn't, as was the case with me, take all the time you need, but make sure you send us this person's communication or contact. Where are we with this project? Once you send us all of that, then take all the time you need, but only within this 2-week window.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that's what it looked as though there was a little more care given to Courtney Vandersloot. Now, what that process looks like, we don't know. We can't say for sure what that will look like for the rest of the season. So it's going to be something that, especially Vandersloot, but also by extension the team, is going to have to continually navigate. Yes, I love this. Taking time, and I had to learn this the hard way. I'm still learning it the hard way. And my dad died, 9 years ago, because no one teaches you this. But yes, processing your grief is resistance, and finding people and having real conversations like this. I do want to apologize because I did not give any kind of trigger warning. I just kind of went into this conversation, and I know that can be hard for people as well. So I'll take that on. That's on me. And I also have learned through my process and sharing my process that I've been able to help other people as they're going through a similar process. And that's something that, quite frankly, I didn't have. So yeah, I just wanted to make space for that, because I can only imagine that there are other people that are also going through this. And, we don't talk about it because not all of us are the starting point guard for the New York Liberty. So if it's something that you've gone through, if it's unfortunately something that you're going through, or if it's something that you find yourself going through, just know that I'll speak for me. I'm definitely here. I will take the time and make the time to have whatever conversation that is helpful. Because we don't have these conversations publicly as much as I think we should. And people don't know how to react when we're reacting to our grief. So, but hopefully Courtney Vandersloot has the support from the New York Liberty that she needs, and it seems like she does. So, I don't think that it's within that context. I just wanted to make note that she played less than 13 minutes as an observation. And to move on to some other things, because again, this is a New York Liberty team that took on the responsibility to hold down their point guard, and they've been able to do that for a good stretch, Brian. But also, there are other things that come up in a basketball season, and there's something that there's two things that I want to talk about, because ultimately, I think, spoiler alert, they lost to Minnesota. I think everyone knew that by now. Hopefully it's not a spoiler for anyone. And, the loss, you always want to win a championship. You never want to lose at, air quote, home. But I guess technically they didn't. But I think there are definitely things that we learned. We don't have to sensationalize the loss. We don't have to sensationalize the loss in a championship game. I think we can root this in things that are working for the New York Liberty and things that aren't working. And things that are working, baby. Sabrina Ionescu looking like a baddie. Come on now, somebody. I done told you, sis, got to be ready for them keys. And I feel like she's putting her hand out. Palm up. She ready, Brian. She ready.
You got the keys. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing about Sabrina that's been really evident throughout this entire process, I guess the second half of Tuesday accepted, like she's been fantastic running the offense. Like every decision she makes is the right decision. Like before, like if we were in 2022 and teams just sort of like trap her and do hard hedges, she'd struggle. Now, got it. Like whenever she can string out the defense, whenever she sees JJ for a mismatch, she's able to get her the ball really high up, like really get JJ and her teammates in great spots. Like the game against Atlanta on Sunday, Jordan Canada made her season/Atlanta dream debut. And what did she have to deal with? Sabrina Ionescu driving into her shoulder and finishing over her multiple times, like really sort of putting the pressure on her that way. So I think for Sabrina, she's putting everything together in a really good fashion. Like even on defense, the effort is there. Like she's not like, I don't think we'll ever consider her like a top tier defender, but I think for what she does, as long as you give the effort, that's always what Cindy wants, is like, that's a great line.
Las llaves, the keys. Just in case anyone needed translation there.
So I think for Sabrina, her effort on both sides of the ball have been really sort of, I guess inspiring might be the wrong word, but it's really heartening to see that your lead option is giving that maximum effort. Like she's minimizing the mistakes as best as she can, and she's working to get herself and her teammates as many great looks as possible. And I think for this Liberty team, like their 3-point shooting had been in a bit of a rut, but that's starting to like come back to normal. And when
and because of who? And because of who? Who Kayla Thornton just leave her wide the heck open? Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna get to KT in a minute too. But like with Sabrina, like she's done, I think, everything right as like a lead sort of like face of the franchise type player this season. And I think for Liberty fans, going into the next generation of this organization, having a player like that who's getting better, who I think fairly has a shot at all WNBA first team. Like I think if the season ends today, I might put her in there. Like I think she's been so well. I might go far enough to say she's been the best guard in the league this season. Like, I don't think that's particularly outlandish.
I thought number 22 is the best guard in the league. I couldn't help it. Okay.
Yeah. So I think for Sabrina, like she's done everything well as far as like your lead option. And I think for her, I think the best part is that she still can get even better, which I think is great for Liberty and scary for the rest of the league. But she's doing what she's doing now, and there's still like another level she can reach. So I think for her, it's been a really heartening and encouraging month of June. Like after the Sparks game, someone was like, "Oh, hey, you guys got another back-to-back. Y'all got a lot of games in your stretch." She's like, "I'm not tired," and it's like, okay, I love that energy. Like you keep at it. Like these folks don't care that y'all tired. Like y'all gotta like handle business as best as you can. And she's out here handling business. Like she's hitting threes from the logo at halftime to put Atlanta in the dirt for good. Like doing fantastic plays, really getting that teams like that. Like working Las Vegas, outplaying Olympians on the other side, backcourt Olympians on that other side. Sabrina cleared them. Doing great play like that, even going shot for shot in Phoenix. Like this is what you want from Sabrina Ionescu. And I think that the fact that she's doing it and the fact that everything is still within the flow of the offense, like it's not a situation where it's like, oh, I'm gonna just clear out and get mine. Like, she's playing within the team context. She's doing everything you want. The ball is zipping and humming all over the court when she's out there. And she's doing, I think, a fantastic job of making sure everyone's involved and making sure everyone's getting the ball in their best possible position to score and have success. And I think that it gives the Liberty so much more room and so much more buttons to press that you can try out different lineups. You can try, Sabrina. Okay, Sabrina, you're the only guard out here. I'm going to get all the wings in the roster. They're going to be in the court, run it, make it work. And she has been. So it's been really sort of like heartening to see her play well because you get to press so many different buttons. Okay, Leo, you're out here. Ivana, come get some minutes today. Marquisha, welcome to Atlanta. Have fun out there. Like, there's so many awesome opportunities that Sabrina playing at this level can unlock for Sandy and the club. So I think for her, it's been amazing.
And that leads me to, I agree with a lot, pretty much everything that you said. And there are also some things that fall into potentially what is not going so well with this team. But before we do that, Misha, I got to come to you because Kayla Thornton, now in the first half of that Commissioner's Cup game in particular, and not just in that game, she's done it throughout the season. But Minnesota was kind of low-key being disrespectful with their defense. You said number one defense coming into that game, and that number one defense wanted to leave Thornton open in the corner. What was that about?
Yeah, I mean, when you got a team like New York, even when you're the number one defense in the league, you got to pick your poison. And, you saw what happened with JJ. We're going to talk about her shortly, I'm sure. But, a lot of their defensive energy was focused on her, focused on Stewie, focused on the usual suspects. And when that happens, as it does, your X Factors have a chance to do the X Factoring. And Kayla Thornton stepped up to the freaking plate. I mean, first of all, I love her shot. We haven't talked about this, but I love her shot. It's so balanced. It's so fluid. The release is so high. That gooseneck is beautiful. She snaps that wrist. And it's, like, as an offensive aficionado, we already talked about this on this podcast. It's a beautiful thing to see. But absolutely, she did what Kayla Thornton does, right? It might not be as consistent as a Sab, but you leave her open like that, she's going to knock it down. And she's not going to be scared about it either. She's hit. I don't think this is something we've talked about a lot on the podcast either, but Kayla Thornton bails them out in a lot of late shot clock situations with threes or with long twos. So I wasn't surprised to see her have a game like this. I'm happy for her, even in the midst of a loss, the Commissioner's Cup loss. But don't forget about her, man. Don't forget about her, man.
Yeah. I mean, but here, and nobody who listens to Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans brought to you by Black Rosie Media, should be surprised. Because we've been talking about those two players in particular all off season. And the promise was right there. The promise and the vision was right there. And then what happened? I think a few things happened. First of all, as Damien has put in here a few times, and also, Damien, I know we've been in a chat talking. I just want to acknowledge again that I have seen your comments and I'm grateful for them. And truly, it's all love, fam. You already know. I hope you know. It's all love. It's all love. So and sending you love. But the turnovers. Let's just first talk about the turnovers because this has been a bugaboo and Achilles heel for the New York Liberty, Brian, all season long.
Yeah. In post game, Sabrina made a really interesting comment where she was like, we tried to reinvent the wheel in the second half. And I think it will get to the reinventing the wheel part in a moment. But it's like I think from what I understand, I think their two highest turnover games this year have come against Minnesota. And it's like you can turn the ball over, like it happens. But when you're against the tippy top teams, that margin for error is so minuscule. And, it's sort of the turnovers obscured what I thought was a really fascinating development for the Liberty was that they worked Minnesota on the glass. Like, I was looking up the stats going into the game, and Minnesota is 10th in the league in rebounding. And I think the Liberty won the battle by like at least 15, maybe 20. So they showed that, hey, if it comes down to it, we can crash the glass and own the glass against a good team as like Minnesota. But when you commit 21 turnovers and then that leads to 27 transition points off for turnovers for the Lynx, and you lose the game by 5 points, it's like, okay, our mistakes cost us this game. And we know that if we were at least 5% better, we probably win. And we probably have enough to hang on and beat a team like this. So I think when it comes to the turnovers, it's just a matter of accounting for like certain pressures that defenses will put on you. And I know, Erica, it like one of the questions you asked in the rundown, we're going to get to a moment about this particular problem. So it's like, okay, what do we do to make sure that we just continue what we're doing? And then even when they have a counter, we still stick to as much of our principles as we can. Because one thing about the Liberty is that Sandy would be like, we want to take like a certain amount of threes a night, but we want to get in the paint. But then there are certain nights where it's like, okay, trying to get into the paint is a noble goal and a respectable goal. But if it ain't there, like, I understand you want to like really work to get the best shot, but if the good shot is there, just fire it up. Don't worry about it. Like, just trust that your shot is good. Let that thing fly, and then we'll live with the consequences from there. And
go ahead, Brian.
One other interesting thing, and Sandy kind of took the blame for this. She could have played the bench a little bit more. I thought. Like,
I saw that in the comments earlier. I forget who said it. I'm gonna say
it's like Cheryl tried Kennedy Burke, you're not on the court. I'm not paying attention to you. And then KB took it to Nafisa Collier multiple times. And it's like, okay, KB, I like what you bring in tonight. And Sandy in the postgame was like, hey, you played her a lot in the first half and she was excellent, but she didn't play in the second. And Sandy was like, yeah, that's a great question. You're kind of right. Like, I was telling Ken, I'm like, maybe I should have got you back in there. So I think for Sandy in particular, like, that's what you want from a coach, where it's like, okay, I kind of messed this up. I'm gonna take the heat for that, because it shows that when you hold the players accountable and you hold yourself accountable as well too, you give yourself an environment. And I think, yeah.
No, go ahead. I was just wanting to come back to, because I know we saw it at the top of the comments. Sandy should have put Burke back in the second half. You kind of alluded to that. And I think also, if I got to listen to the broadcast, later, so that the game had already been final. I wasn't watching live. And what was very noticeable, to your point about trying to maybe get to the paint, was that Jonquel Jones, not much of a factor early in the game. And on the one hand, you think, how is Jonquel Jones, the 2023 Commissioner's Cup MVP, not a factor? On the other hand, Misha, I mean, here's the game flow chart. If you're getting it done and that double team is going to Jonquel Jones, because that's how KT was left open the majority of the time, what's the balance between wanting to get one of your MVPs, not just of the Commissioner's Cup, but of a league MVP going and involved, but at what cost to the flow of the game that you're actually playing in the moment?
Yeah, it's why, I'm not a WNBA head coach. It's a very, very difficult balance to strike. I do not envy Sandy Brondello in that situation, because on the one hand, you do not want to stifle what Kayla Thornton is doing. You do not want to stop that train or slow that train down at all. You want that thing to keep going full speed. But at the same time, to be successful, JJ has to be involved. She has to. And it wasn't just that it felt like she didn't have it going on the offensive end in terms of her own production. It didn't seem like she was involved at all. Like, she killed it on the glass, to Brian's point about New York beating Minnesota up on the glass. But in other respects, it felt like she just wasn't involved. It felt like she was just off to the side and they were playing 4-on-5 and Kayla Thornton just happened to have a great game. And so to me, that's very different than just she had an off night scoring the basketball. She just didn't feel like she was part of the unit at all. And credit to Minnesota's defense, right? That double team did what it was supposed to do. But yeah, I think, again, there's a difference between having an off night shooting the ball and not being involved and making other things happen for your teammates.
I agree. I mean, Jonquel Jones, 33 minutes, 0 for 3, from the field, 0 for 1 from 3-point. Free throws is how she got her 3 points, 3 of 4 free throws, plus minus -3. Rebounds 12, so still solid there. 3 assists, 3 steals, 1 block shot. But to Misha's point, Brian, and I'd love to get your thoughts as you were watching in the arena, not Barclays, but UBS. I mean, listen, if I get into that now, we're going to be here all night. So we're not going to talk about the venue change, not on tonight, but we might have to circle back. But Brian, what was the sentiment? What were you hearing from the players regarding Jonquel Jones? And because she did seem like she was lost out there. There was a lack of hustle, it seemed like.
I think for JJ, what made it complicated was that Sandy acknowledged in the post game is that Minnesota was playing like almost like a 3-quarter defense, where it's like they're fronting, they're bringing that extra help on the side. Like the Lynx are really long on defense to begin with, so the angles were a little bit tough. And then when JJ would get the ball in the block, it's Dorga Juhas is here. Alana Smith is there. Fee is coming at you. McBride, really long, rangy defenders, just sort of swarming her every single moment. And I think it made her getting the ball in the block and going to work how she usually does almost impossible. Because one thing about JJ, you get her the ball in that low post, she'll get to work. She'll hit you with a smooth one-legged fadeaway. Like she's able to operate in some circumstances. Like we watched her like a week and a half ago put up like 35 and 15 against the finals MVP. So it's like when it's that time, JJ can make it happen. Like she did it in Connecticut. Like she carried them down the stretch against Bree Jones, AT, and that Sun front court. So she's able to make it work in that regard. But I think the Lynx have been almost a kryptonite this season, because in the first Minnesota matchup, she didn't really play well either. So it looks like it's one of those things where almost like Minnesota has like a beat on her this season. And you want to get her the ball in the block because she can get to the free throw line. She can work, she can finish in traffic. She can do all those things well. But the paint was a little bit more congested than usual. And then I think after halftime, like as Ionescu said, they tried to reinvent the wheel, and I think they course corrected too much, because it's like you're trying to force it in there. It's like, okay, we know, like we see JJ working her butt off on defense, getting the boards, trying to start the pass, but she's working her tail off, and we want to the maxim is reward the big. They working hard, get them the rock, make them feel involved. And they were trying to do that, but it's a situation where you're working really hard for it, and a really smart, great defense knows exactly what you're trying to do.
It's not there.
Okay, it's not there tonight. You're going to keep going there. Fine. We'll just get it back in there and then really make it tough. So I think for the Liberty, it's a situation where maybe if they space JJ out a little bit more on the perimeter, I'm probably gonna have to do like a rewatch of that game before next Tuesday's matchup with the Lynx. But I think if they space JJ out a little bit more and was like, okay, your shot isn't there, we want you to be more of a hub, because she's a fantastic passer. Like her passing has been the best it's ever been this season. So in retrospect, it's like, okay, the paint isn't there for you, but we can get you in the high post in the 3-point line. You can. Everyone's here, like you can work in that way. So I guess next time I see Sandy, like I guess before Tuesday, I'll ask her about the course correction when it comes to that, especially to sort of get JJ more free. So I think this matchup is going to make for a fascinating cat and mouse. Like I was telling a friend of mine on Press Row, like if we got 5 games of this in October, I will be a very happy customer. Like this is. Yeah. It was like being in there. It was like really high level basketball. It's like, okay, this is exactly what we want to watch. Like this is fun. Yes. We got superstars going at it, like role players having the games of their life with so many people watching. Like Bridget Carlton, this is your moment.
Hey, come on now.
Like
BC, let's go.
One fun thing about KT, like after the first 3, like she mean mugged someone. I'm like, who is she mean mugging? And then I look and she's mean mugging Piff and Jonathan Cope. I'm like, okay, this is fun. She's like, every time she's like and then Jonathan Kolb and Pip dapping her up, and she's going back on defense. I'm like, this is excellent. Like this is fun. This is what we like to see. So I think that
she wanted that bonus for MVP, baby. She was ready.
Yep.
Hey, if they won, I would have been like, someone give Kayla that award. Be like, have her
all the Papa Johns she wants.
That also got the team free pizza, which, hey, if I can get folks, I'm gonna say this: Papa John's, not that bad. Like people be knocking Papa John's. I'm like, what's wrong with y'all?
It's Papa John himself that people have issue with.
Yeah, personally, that is true.
That's his fault.
Yeah, that's my issue. But I will say, my whole life, my family's eating Papa John's, so I also am a fan of the actual pizza.
First of all, listen. You have a choice between any pizza in New York City or Papa John's, and you still going with Papa John's? I got problems with that. Yeah, I eat Papa John's. You know where? In North Carolina. I mess with Domino's. You know why? Because I'm in Oklahoma. You in Brooklyn. You could walk from the locker room to Patsy's, and you still picking Papa John's with that crusty little pepper in there?
You crusty little pepper, please. Y'all not eating the right Papa John's pizza.
And that cholesterol sauce that they put in there, that's what you doing?
Hey.
Stop.
I didn't say I would pick it over in New York slice. I didn't say that. I just said KT, you got smoke for KT.
I sure do. She lucky she's shooting them threes the way she shooting them. What borough did she say also? Oh, that had me weak.
I think she said Queens. I'm like, wait a minute.
I'll be all right with Queens. I'm a Mets fan, so I'll be all right with that. But Papa John's, anyway. All right. So Brian, you alluded to it a few times, and this is the big question because I love what you said. This is a chess match. The New York Liberty have lost both games to Minnesota this season. Early in the year, and Cheryl Reeve talked about it, that they got the New York Liberty at the right time. They were still struggling. Now, some of those struggles, the turnovers in particular, they're still dealing with. But in theory, this is a New York Liberty team, Misha, that knows how to string some wins together. But the big question, because all three of us have alluded to it, because this is the question of the episode of the New York Liberty season, especially when they play the Lynx, it would appear. Who is the number one choice? Who does the New York Liberty need to run the offense through? Who is clutch right now? And we had this conversation last year. And while I do think they got better, I almost think they got even more problems now this year because Sab is playing well. Jonquel Jones is feeling good. Brianna Stewart is locking people down on defense and still finding a way. We didn't even get to that bullet point yet. We had it on the rundown because Stewie had to put this team on her back just to make this, a respectable game at one point. And even it looked like had to kind of, get her teams together. We saw in the comments someone saying, Laney looked a little frazzled, a little frustrated at times. So who is the go-to? And is that different, or should it be different when they play Minnesota on Tuesday? Misha, we coming to you first.
You know what they say, EA, more money, more problems. And that's what it feels like right now for the New York Liberty. The more money you have, i.e. the more weapons you have, the more, people who can do something with the rock when you need them to, the harder that decision becomes. You know what I mean? Especially against a defensive team like the Minnesota Lynx, who they can switch up schemes on you however they want to. That's the number one defense in the league. So they can decide on a nightly basis, depending on who's hot, who's streaky, like you just alluded to, who they want to try and stop. And, you know, with the New York Liberty, for me, the real question is, when you're playing against a team like that, are you going to be reactive to what they decide to do to you? Or, like you're saying, are you going to pick somebody and go with that gun and keep going with that gun regardless of what's going on? And in terms of them against the Lynx, I mean, we talked about it in discussing the recap of the Commissioner's Cup game. They've got it in the paint. You know what I mean? They know how to muck it up down there. But yeah. JJ only taking 3 shots is just not enough for me. She has to, you know, she might not be the leading scorer, and we just mentioned she might just be the hub and not the actual go-to in a certain game. But she has to be able to assert herself, because her going to the basket not only creates opportunities for her to go get putbacks, but her teammates to go get putbacks, for Stewie to go get a bucket, for those kick-out threes that we love on second chance points. Like, a team like this that shoots the ball well when they're shooting the way the New York Liberty, we know they can shoot back to normal, like Brian said earlier. That's how you get those opportunities, but you can't have that without JJ being assertive. But yeah, against the Lynx, it's tough, but you got to figure out who you want to go with, and you can't react to what the Minnesota Lynx think you do.
That's real. I think that's real. You know, and I want to talk about Jonquel Jones, because I think the broadcast maybe said it, and Brian, you were there, but I thought I heard or read a quote in passing that, and it maybe was Sab saying that maybe they tried to go into the paint a little bit too much instead of going with what worked. And you know how much of that is JJ is our superstar, because that was real last year, without question. But is that what worked that night? Is that real for this season? And I know we're going to get to your comment, Damien, because I have some thoughts there. But the way JJ's demeanor in this game, it was a JJ of old, a less matured JJ. And it almost at times felt like it was a little bit of, the word sulking is coming to my mind. That might be a little bit harsh, but it was kind of like, I'm not getting the touches that I want. And I don't know if that was the right move. That's just from observation. I've only watched the game once, that one time on replay. But it just felt like, and we've already alluded to it, that JJ was out of sync. And then it seems like the team reacted to that. But as we also have already talked about, Brian, perhaps they overcorrected. So what was the team saying about that postgame?
Yeah, in her post game, KT mentioned that they tried to sort of force them on the paint a little bit too much, and Sabrina said as much too. And I think I missed JJ's portion of post game, so I have to sort of like reach out to the folks who were there, because UBS amazing half. But I think JJ mentioned that I think there were just like a few mistakes that the team made. I think she mentioned herself too, as far as like managing things, sort of getting those open shots. And I think just being in the arena, I could tell JJ was frustrated. Like, there were a couple possessions. There was one when the Liberty got hit for a turnover, where I think it might have been Alana Smith who pulled JJ with 2 arms out of bounds, and then the ball flew, and then a foul wasn't called, and you saw JJ getting really frustrated. There were a few times she was getting hit, and she didn't get the whistle, and she was getting a little bit frustrated. And it's something that she and the team have talked about a lot, as far as like managing officiating from game to game, because you know, some nights, like I think I tweeted during the game, WNBA refs will either call everything or nothing, and there's zero in between. So some nights, like, you'll get like a whistle, like you breathe on someone, that's a foul, and then the other night you can like bonk someone in the shoulder, and then nothing happens. So just managing that aspect of the game is something she's working on. And I think Tuesday may have just been like I'm frustrated. It was happening for me, and then it sort of bled in a little bit, but I wouldn't say too much, because I think sometimes, like, when we've seen bigs not feel all the way in it, they'll just like not run back on defense. They'll not be engaged. But JJ still kept the energy up. Like, she's switching out on defense. There were like a few times that she switched out onto Kayla McBride, held it down. Courtney Williams tried to sort of get her, like tried to get at her in the mid range. JJ hung with her, contested a shot. So that effort was there. And I think that, like you said, the team overcorrected because it's like, okay, that's our MVP. She's working her tail off down there, and if we get her the ball in just the right spot, she can get the rest there. But the angles just weren't there that night. So now it's just a matter of how do you sort of free her open, and I think that's going to be the challenging part. And I wonder, now that they have a more full component, what does that look like? Is it a situation where you may not necessarily have to play JJ the entire second half? It's like, okay, I have a good big off the bench who played well. If JJ's like not in the best sort of like flow right now, I can pull her for like a minute or two, and then I won't suffer anything behind it. So I think it's just a matter of like, adjusting to like building out different lineups, trying out different things, and sort of feeling the game flow in real time. So I think for Tuesday, it's going to be really interesting to see how things look. And I think what also helped the Liberty this time is that they've got a little bit of time off now. They're not traveling after 4th of July. So now you guys can sit in your house, in your actual borough, and just like get comfortable, be where you are, and then play your games accordingly. So I think it's.
You talking about practice? You talking about practice? Like they gonna have time? Not a game. Not a game. We talking about practice in Barclays. And I like what you're saying here. And if I'm the New York Liberty, I'm going to JJ early on Tuesday against Minnesota, because what you want to do is bait Minnesota into doing exactly what they did on defense early on. And then if you're JJ and you're the rest of the team, you have to be smart and have those kickouts. Have that ready. Because if I'm guessing, Minnesota is going to be ready for that this time. And let's be honest, KT's shot might not be on like it was last time, but you have to establish that JJ is still an integral part of your offense to open up everybody else and then see what's falling. That's what I would say. I think you still have to go to JJ, even if she's not getting those shots, but she has to get touches. We talked about this with the Indiana Fever. If you're not giving Aaliyah Boston touches, what are you even doing? What are you even doing? And I like, Brian, what you said. You were talking about JJ on the defensive side, but it goes for the same offensively. And JJ kind of does this organically anyway. You don't really have to ask her or tell her to do this, but she's going to come off the block. She's going to come off that block, whether it's to set screens, whether it's to get the ball just so it's not getting stuck, whether it's to take a three, she's going to come off the block. But you need JJ activated. And the way you can do that is by making sure she gets touches early in the game and early in the shot clock. To that end, you cannot fall in love with getting the ball to JJ. I know that might seem counterintuitive, but you can't think that she's your last shot always. She's your first pass, but that's not the same as being your last shot. Right. If that makes sense, Misha.
Right. Yeah, it absolutely does. The fact of the matter is, players like JJ, players like, I'll throw Stewie in that bag as well, Aaliyah Boston, bigs that tend to be focal points. It's a very simple game. You mentioned it. Minnesota did what? They doubled her. When you double somebody, you are creating a mismatch elsewhere on the court. That's all you need to do. Like you just said, she doesn't have to be the last shot. The point is, give the defense an opportunity to make a mistake and capitalize off of that. That's where having more money, more pieces, whatever you want to call it, comes in handy, because you can trust whoever you've got on the court to make that play when that opportunity arises. But you don't get that opportunity again, like you're saying, without first getting that ball to JJ, forcing Minnesota to get out of position and playing chess that way.
And I like this. Hey, leave with it. Hey, come on, let's go. Okay, the Liberty have a bad habit of getting away from Stewie when she's hot. Then it caused them to lose a few games now in Phoenix and the Commish Cup. And that's why, again, the question in this segment is, and if y'all have questions or comments, now's your chance to get them in, because we're about to go into the fourth quarter. We're about to wrap this thing up. So time to get your questions in if you want us to address them on this podcast. That's Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, brought to you by Black Rosie Media. Okay, but yes, Stewie, I mean, but let's just look at, we got the game flow chart, but then look at this, 24 points and had to create that. because I don't think the offense was necessarily looking for Stewie. So that goes to your more money, more problems. I absolutely think you got to get JJ touches early in the shot clock. But to my point, giving her the first pass and giving her the last shot, not the same thing. The last shot, come on, Damian, it's your chance to your dance. The last shot is right here. That's where I'm putting my money. That's where I'm putting my money right now.
Yeah.
Stewie,
and yeah. And the fact of the matter is, like, you also alluded to this earlier, and this goes against everything I was saying at the end of the season last season, and I understand that because I was very gung-ho on, okay, and it made sense because JJ was doing her thing down the stretch in the playoffs. I was very gung-ho on, you need to get JJ the ball specifically, right? But, like, I just... there are so many things you can do in this offense, man. There are so many things you can do with this offense. And Sab and Sabrina are hot right now. And so if they're hot right now, you keep going to them right now until somebody else shows you, oh, I'm hot right now, like maybe KT did against the Lynx, then you can, but again, it's a very delicate balance. Like I said earlier, I'm glad I'm not a WNBA head coach because these are very difficult decisions to make. But, you have to know when it's time to lean a little bit more into one side than the other. But yeah, I totally agree. Stewie and Sabrina have picked up the pace. I mean, Sabrina's been on one, but Stewie has definitely picked up the pace and is doing Stewie things.
And I think she had to do more, or was comfortable doing more on the defensive side early on, and then was like, no. Let me get these points real quick so that Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, stop putting me as like option 3 as the MVP of my own dang team. We not having that. Like in my mind, that's how it went. I don't know. But in my mind, that's how it went. This is interesting, though. Lean with it, rock with it. It's easier for teams to get JJ out of the game than Stewie. Stewie needs to be the first option. Now, that is interesting, and I don't disagree with you. But that's also why I think JJ needs to get the ball first. Because if you establish, it's almost like you kind of rope a dope, right? If you establish JJ, then that's where the defense is going to go. And then who does that potentially, right, open up? Stewie. Okay, they don't want to give Stewie more leniency. Then who does that open up potentially? Sab. Oh, wait, no, they got her locked down too. Okay, who does that open up? KT, Betnijah, Vandersloot when she's in the game. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, but I don't know that any of that opens up if you don't get JJ touches. It's not that she's I don't want to say she's a decoy, but when you get Jonquel Jones the ball because of her size, because of her strength and her skill, which is a like for like. I'm not saying, I mean, I'm not trying to say it's Stewie or Jay. They're very comparable. They're very comparable in a lot of ways.
They're extremely similar.
She's got more size. Let's keep it a buck. So you have someone with more size with almost the exact same skill as Stewie? Stop. Either one of them could run the point if they really had to.
Facts.
That's wild.
It puts you in a blender.
I'm putting that ball all the way up to the tippy top and then let that trickle down, baby. That would be me. Somebody's going to be open. Somebody somewhere is going to be open, but Jonquel Jones can see it all. She can see it all. That's the only reason. I'm not saying I even disagree with you. And maybe it has to go the other way sometimes. And I think that's where what I've liked about Sandy, which maybe she needs to execute differently and rethink, is that she's been a little laissez-faire in her Phoenix days. Now, it drove me crazy with that Phoenix team. But we got to let the flow. It's almost like there's got to be a little bit more of a flow at times. And if it ain't working, then you gotta tell the team, no. Get the ball to JJ. Get the ball to Sab. Get whoever it is. You got to remind them. I don't know. It's these are good problems to have. If you can even say they're problems, but they're good problems. Now it's about this team continuing to put in the work to figure out what buttons to press. I think it was the Aces last year They move not exactly the same, but they move well together because they anticipate where they're going to go. I don't think the New York Liberty are quite there yet. Not quite. They're close, but not quite there. Not quite there. So I don't know, folks. It's going to be a good one. The New York Liberty versus Minnesota. Game 3, effectively, is what we're about to call it. We call it a Game 3. It's the third game in the season, in the series, whatever you want to call it. But it's going to be a good one. So quickly, we're going to start with you, Misha. Go around the horn. What you got coming up? What and who, or you know how we do. The New York Liberty win the game against Minnesota if.
All right. The New York Liberty win this game against Minnesota if. To me, it comes down to ball movement. I think we've alluded to it this entire podcast. But I think the New York Liberty specifically look their best when the ball is moving. So I think they win this game if JJ has upwards of 5 assists. Sab does Sab things, and I also want to see Stewie have upwards of 5 assists. I think they can do that. And frankly, Sloot, if she comes in the game and feels like she can have more of an impact and play more than 13 minutes, then maybe that changes. But right now, I think the three of them need to be hubs in their own right, and need to help get the offense involved. So if those three have 2 out of 3 have upwards of 5 assists, then the New York Liberty win.
All right, we might have to tap in with Misha because she's going to be in Phoenix, taking in the sights and sounds, following the amazing Cindy Brunson, and then, of course, the vet versus the rookie. So, let us know how it goes. So you get off the hook with our awkward goodbye today, Mish, but appreciate you tapping in, and we'll check you back later.
Everybody. See y'all soon.
All right, Brian, you know how it do. Your turn. New York Liberty win against the Washington Mystics. Look at me. Making it all about the Mystics. They win against the Minnesota Lynx on Tuesday if.
I think the Liberty beat the Lynx if they out-rebound them by at least 10. Like Minnesota today, even in their game against Dallas, I think the Wings won the rebounding battle by a large margin. Like Minnesota wore them out on the offensive glass. And we've seen the Liberty be able to out-rebound Minnesota in a game of consequence. So I think if they're able to out-rebound the Lynx by at least 10, that gives them enough time to sort of control the flow of the game, gives them more second chance opportunities, more chances to put Minnesota in foul trouble. And I think if they do that, combined with just like some other things here and there, I think it'll be enough to get them to win.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to say the New York Liberty win on Tuesday against the Minnesota Lynx if they keep their turnovers to no more than 12. I really want to say 10. But I'm going to give them a little bit of grace and say 12. They had 20 turnovers. What was it? 20 turnovers for how many points? Let me see. I forgot. Points off at 27 points. 27 points for Minnesota. You gave them dang near a 30-piece on your turnovers alone. Come on. We're better than that. And we'll have to be better than that to beat Minnesota on Tuesday. All right, folks, I love it. Redemption time for the New York Liberty on Tuesday. Let's go. Lean with it, rock with it, saying they beat the Lynx if they aren't in their heads. I like this too. They beat themselves both times. That's right. That's what we talked about in the rundown on social media. Self-inflicted wounds. The Liberty has to remember the Lynx is small and they are big. Listen, Cheryl Reeve was kind of popping up. Oh, no. Then they lost to the 12th seed. So, there's that. No, not the finger. He gave the finger. Pointed that finger in the camera. Listen, I like it all. You know how we do. Thank y'all so much for coming in. I know some of this might have been a difficult conversation at times, but we appreciate you showing up, showing out for us here at Black Rosie Media and our podcast. Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. That's all of y'all. JC, great to see you. Peace out, everybody. And now it's time for the wave. The wave. We got to do the Ellie wave on the way out. Not UBS saying welcome Ellie the elephant instead of welcome New York Liberty. That had me in tears. I was cracking up. We appreciate you, Lean with it, rock with it. All right, peace out, everybody. We'll catch you next time.